How's it going? Thad Brown, Rachel Labert in on Bills Campday recap. Now, the Bills are not practicing at St. John Fisher anymore, but it is still training camp, which is why this is still called Bills Campday recap. It is the Wednesday before the Bills head to Chicago for their joint practice, and the news is not about the Bears. It is not about much football on the field, but it is about a player who not only is back on the field as of Tuesday, but a player who's going to be back on the Bills field for a long time. James Cook signs his brand new 4-year, $48 million extension, although we're going to get into this in a little bit. There are some reports that number might not be quite that high. We will get into some practice stuff later. Might even talk about Josh's college football coach visiting. Might get into the Hard Knocks. We'll see. But we want to take some time here to talk about this contract, what it means. There are so many little threads to unpack with James Cook and this 4-year, $48 million deal. Rachel, let's start with this. Your reaction right off the bat when you saw the news this morning.
I was kind of shocked. I mean, were you shocked at this, or did you expect this?
Not shocked, but like whatever is half a notch down from shock. Okay. It was certainly like, whoa, okay.
I feel like looking back, I maybe should have expected it, just considering he did practice yesterday. Maybe I should have thought, maybe this will be happening soon. I mean, we did think it was going to happen soon, but I was a little bit shocked. I mean, kind of seemed like a quick moving thing, but I mean, it's obviously. Glad he's back out there. Glad he got the money that seemingly he wanted. I mean, we don't know the details of all of, the numbers and everything. But, yeah, I think this is a really good thing. And like you said, so many threads to discuss on him just being back out there.
I was not shocked, but I was certainly, as I just pointed out, pretty darn surprised. Yeah. And I know what you're saying that, well, geez, Cook was at practice on Tuesday. We should have suspected something was there. And that makes sense in hindsight. But at the time, because the whole idea of him suddenly not practicing was mysterious. Yeah. It made sense that him returning to practice could be just as mysterious. So, look, let's talk about this too, separate of the, kind of out of nowhere. And look, the other thing about this too is contracts are almost always kind of out of nowhere, like especially with the Bills. This is not a team that is well known for having long holdouts. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. So the fact that this happened this way after a hold, and I don't think should be surprised, because there have been a number of times where you go into an offseason and you think, well, if this guy hits free agency, the Bills aren't getting him back. And the Bills, I think AJ Epinesa signed 2 hours before free agency happened, or Matt Milano. So the contract happening kind of out of nowhere is almost par for the course for the Bills. So in that viewpoint, I'm not totally surprised. Yeah. Let's talk about the money. And I will say that I thought even through the offseason that $12 million a year is probably about the limit that I would want to go to if I was the Bills. So that's what he got, 4 for 48 potentially, and we'll get into the details in a second here. So to me, this, at least at face value, and it all depends on the details of the contract, as we always know, this feels like a very thick contract that James Cook got from the Bills. And we'll also talk about the method, about how it happened. But the numbers to me, Rachel, seem like James Cook made out just fine with this deal.
Yeah, and he said in the press conference, I don't feel like this was a win or lose situation. I feel like he won in this situation. I mean, regarding, we don't know if the number's even as accurate as the reports are saying, but this is a big contract for a running back who people are saying, is he valued at this contract? I mean, and we look back on last year and what he produced, and he was obviously a huge part of this Bills offense. And in that perspective, yes, okay, they want to pay him, they want to keep him around, but at the same time, it was kind of like, oh wow, this is probably what he wanted, and this seems to come to fruition pretty quickly. I kind of thought so. I think this would be a win for him, regardless if he says it or not. I feel like this is a win for James Cook.
If those numbers are accurate.
If they are, yes.
And we don't know for sure. Now, like I said, Spot Track has reported what they believe to be the full contract, which is interesting how fast they got it. Yeah. That is ridiculously quick, even for these contract websites. For example, Kyron Williams, who signed, 3-4 days ago, his contract is not on Spot Track because, of course, I went right to that one to compare. Let me see what the differences are. And we don't know what the details are for the Williams contract. So for the James Cook details to be out, I thought that was curious. Now, what Spot Track said, kind of summing it up, because people will glaze over fast when you really dive into the numbers with NFL salary cap stuff, they determined that it was basically a 3-year, $30 million contract. And the two numbers that I will point out, or three numbers that are of importance, is the dead money charges for the Bills after this year. Now, obviously, they're not going to cut them this year, so the dead money this year doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
If you cut them before next year, it's $19.6 million in dead money.
Okay.
That ain't happening. So he's certainly going to be on the roster next year.
Yeah.
Only a $5 million cap charge. So, for this year and next year, he's probably pretty good, cost for, a running back of that caliber. After the 2026 season, so going into 27, his dead cap is 11.3. You could move on, but you probably don't want to. Okay, so and then in before the $28 million or 28 season, after his third year from now, 25, 26, 27, they have the number at an $8.8 million dead cap charge.
Okay.
So. Come to think of it, I might have those numbers off. So after everybody at home, take the seasons I just talked about, mentally move them one forward. The bottom line is, this is a deal where James Cook is almost certainly going to be on the Bills, certainly this year, next year, and the year after. This is at minimum a 3-year deal. And they said a $30 million payout. So he's getting good money. Like this isn't a 4 for 48 where it's all ridiculously down the road, where a lot of the contract won't be realized. The $30 million guaranteed is certainly a big chunk of it. So I think I land in a spot where the Bills didn't do poorly in this. But as Josh Reed from Bills Kickoff Live said to me at practice today, there ain't no one in the world who's looking at this thinking James Cook should have got more. Right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think that was the general reaction. I think that's been the reaction of everybody kind of seeing these numbers. And like we said, don't know what the numbers specifically are, but it feels like this is a big contract. And I don't feel like I expected the numbers to be that high. And I don't know, maybe you didn't either, but it feels like there's an argument to be made whether or not he is worth that money, like I said, a few minutes ago. And I feel like from looking at his numbers last year, James Cook is such a big part of this offense that I feel like if that's what James Cook was, the money that James Cook was looking for, I feel like if that's what they had to do to bring him back, that seems like that was the only option maybe, because I feel like without James Cook, if you look at last year's offense, the offense was so built off of James Cook last year. Without James Cook this year and having, Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, they're not James Cook. So if you want to bring back the running back who led you in rushing yards last year, who was tied for the most rushing touchdowns in the league last year, there has to be big numbers. So I'm not surprised that it's this high, but maybe a little bit of maybe I am surprised. Maybe I take that back. Maybe I'm a little bit surprised.
So I'll counterpoint that. Look, you're right that James Cook is a different level than the running backs they have. But the offensive line, and we've talked about this before, is probably more so what this offense is built on than James Cook. Now, they kind of work together. Cook makes the O-line good. The O-line makes Cook good. Yeah. But I think the O-line is better than James Cook is. And if you just want to go by rankings, people put the Bills O-line 1, 2, or 3 in the NFL. Yeah. James Cook's like bottom of top 10. So while they're both really good and deserve to get paid, the offensive line, to me, is a better part of it. So from that point of view, the contract can be looked at as not super worth it. And let's get into this too. The other thing that people talked about a lot with Cook today was he doesn't get a lot of snaps. And we've mentioned it on the show. This is not a guy that's in on 2-minute offense. He doesn't play a ton of third downs, not because he can't catch the ball. He's a really good receiver, but he's the worst pass blocker on the team when it comes to running backs. So Ty Johnson gets a lot of those carries. Is it worth it to pay? And right now, if you go by $12 million a year, which is the average value of his contract based on the total value, which like we said isn't totally fair, but whatever, he's number 6 in the NFL, tied for 6.
Yep.
There is not a running back among the top 6 or 7 who doesn't get 50% of the carries. These are all workhorses. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams for that matter. These are guys that play a lot of snaps and get a lot of carries. And the funny thing is you can look at that both ways.
Yeah.
A, is it worth the money because he didn't touch the ball that much? No. B, is it worth the money because he's not that worn? Yeah, because he's
still putting up the numbers that he produced last year. That's kind of the angle that I'm seeing this from, is he didn't, 48% I think of snaps last year. Somewhere around there. If that's the argument, I understand it. But at the same time, if he's only out there for 48% of the snaps and he's still producing the way he has, maybe that is a larger picture of why the Bills feel he's so important to bring him back and make sure he's here through those next 4 years. And I can go either way. I mean, like you said, looking at those other backs that are above him or the top paid backs in the league, like they are producing the same numbers they're producing, on those snap counts. But you have to think the Bills, it seems that the Bills believe in him regardless of the fact that he's less than 50%, out there when the offense is out there. And so for me, that paints a bigger picture of just how much the Bills and Brandon Beane and everybody thinks that James Cook is. They need James Cook on this offense.
There's no doubt the Bills believe in him. That's not a question.
Yeah.
They do believe in him. The question is, should you believe in him at $12 million a year for a guy that you're only going to use half the time? I mean, so James Cook is going to turn 26 in a month, like month and a half here. So, again, I like the deal from the point of view that even if you're thinking, well, $12 million a year is a lot, well, that's now. In 2027, not that running back salaries go up like receiver quarterback salaries, but $12 million a year, I guarantee, will look better in 2 years.
Yeah.
And if in 2 years, even if James Cook is turning 28, but he's turning 28 at a guy who's only had half the workload of a Saquon Barkley or of a Derrick Henry back when he was that age, well, then you might be getting good bang for your buck 3 years down the road. And that's why this contract is so much fun, because there's so many different angles to discuss with this. And I think bottom line, having Cook on the team is better for the 25 Bills. End of story, period.
Do you think the 25 Bills can win a Super Bowl without James Cook?
Oh, that's a great question.
See, I keep coming back to that too. I'm like, the whole thing, obviously, every year everybody's like, the Bills are going to go to the Super Bowl. That's the end goal. I mean, for every team, that's the end goal. But I'm thinking about it. Like, do we think that without James Cook, if this extension didn't happen or if he, isn't on the Bills this year, are they that Super Bowl caliber team? And I don't think they are. I don't think they would be able to do what they go deep in the postseason or do what they did similar to last year without James Cook. So that thought to me kind of justifies this high contract that we're seeing. On
the one hand, anytime Josh Allen is upright, the Bills have a chance. Like the answer to the question, can they go to the Super Bowl? Is 17 healthy? Then yes, right. But I think we've seen now over the last few years that, for all the people that say the Super Bowl window is always open when Josh Allen is playing, well, but only if the supporting cast around him is good enough to take him there. You can't just do it by yourself. You have a chance, but getting there, as the Chiefs prove all the time, is not just about Josh Allen. So James Cook is not the same impact as Josh Allen. But whatever James Cook offers, which is not this, it's probably like this. Either way, is that the chunk that puts the Bills over the top? I don't know. It's a great question.
I don't know. I think it's part of it.
Right now, I'm sitting in a spot where I'm not going to predict the Bills to go to the Super Bowl either way. But you probably do need him to really feel good about it. You probably do need him and what he brings to the game, what he brings to the team this year. So again, signing him this year for 25 is good and full stop. Period. Right. Is it going to be worth it long term? We'll see. I think there's a good chance, because of the way he doesn't get the carries too much, that you probably can get good return on that investment down the road. But in each individual season, if you're paying, I think it's like 5 or 6% of the cap for a guy that's only playing half the snaps, when other people who make that much are certainly given more. I think it works for the Bills because everybody eats. Where it wouldn't work for most teams.
That was also, I was thinking of that too.
But just because the Bills do it doesn't mean they should have to, because you can get Ty Johnson and Ray Davis to do everybody eats stuff for like 1/6 of what they're paying James Cook. All right, let me just put a pin in this for a second, because I want to get to some of what we heard today at One Bills Drive talking about this, because Brandon Beane and James Cook spoke to the media. And separate of whether he's worth the contract, there was the hold-in and how that went down, why that went down, and kind of how it impacted the team. So let's hear from Beane and James Cook, kind of their different perspectives on that hold-in. And for Beane especially, and I thought this was interesting, for the first time he had a contract issue with one of his guys. What did he learn going through that 9 days of a hold-in?
I learned I don't sleep well. So I don't like those things. They're no fun, and they're no fun from a standpoint of this is a player you really love, you're proud of. It can be tough.
I was trying to protect myself, just trying to stay healthy and just get everything done before I can go out there and play with a clear mindset and just be locked in.
You're working together and you want to get it done, and I'm sure, James probably had some frustrating thoughts or things he wasn't happy with me about, and I respect that. I don't hold it against anyone.
I handled it the right way, I felt like, and I wouldn't say it was a win and lose situation. I mean, it's just, like I said, business.
We've been through things in the past, things that happened, distractions, and I think the core of this team, yes, there's new players every year, but I think the core of this team, knew what this was about and that everyone was level-headed.
So I think Brandon Beane has a good point about how the Bills handled this. All the way through the long 9-day hold and whatever it was. When we talk to guys like Ty Johnson and Ray Davis, they've talked about respect for James Cook. We believe in him. Obviously, business is business. James Cook, throughout the whole day, not that he's a wild talker anyway, but certainly didn't make any more waves than he had to. He did what he had to do and moved on. The interesting question now is, was there any movement on Sunday or Saturday to get him on the field for the preseason warm-up? Brandon Beane said that he told the Cook group, his agents, that you have to be back on the practice field to have us negotiate. And the way Brandon Beane told the timeline was, okay, James went on practice on Tuesday. We started talking Tuesday night. We had the thing done by late on Tuesday. James Cook kind of told it as, well, I went out to practice because I thought it was close. He said, whatever. What do we think was the real motivation for the hold-in? Admittedly, I think you and I are both just throwing stuff at a wall here to try and figure out.
I'm trying to even think.
Because we didn't get a whole lot of answers about why Cook did the hold-in, what turned it around, what stopped it. Where would you go with this, if anywhere?
I don't even know if I have anywhere to go with this. I know we talked about day one of him not showing up to practice. There had to have been some moment or something that happened. But
for the record, and he talked a little bit about it there. His thought was, I just want to protect myself. That's what he said today.
Yeah.
I was trying to dial it down. I wanted to make sure I was okay. Whether or not that impacted the negotiation, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah. I don't know if I have any sort of. I can't even really wrap my mind around the timeline of the last 9 days of what actually happened. It seems like, I don't know. I feel like James Cook just at some point, he says he has to protect himself. There's got to be, okay, maybe this isn't going to come to an agreement. And then it seems like this happened. How fast do hold-ins typically last?
Longer than this.
This feels like a very quick turnaround of events. And so to me, it feels like maybe within that second or third day that he wasn't practicing at St. John Fisher, that maybe, okay, Brandon Beane was like, something needs to get moving here because the season's coming up, as they keep saying, we don't have a lot of time for all of these people to not be on the field. So it feels like, they had to do what they had to do. Maybe it was a sped up process, and I'm not saying that affected, the numbers or anything like that, but it just feels like I don't even know. I can't even really imagine what exactly happened. Like you said, we're just throwing things we don't even know.
The one thing I feel pretty confident in is I think Cook and the team were closer numbers wise than we gave it credit for the whole time. Because
I think so too.
For the last week and a half, I never really said it, but in my brain I was kind of like, wow, the Bills are offering him $4 million. He wants 40. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think it was a lot closer than that. And I think the most logical explanation, and by most logical, I don't mean it is the logical, but the best thing I can come up with is that it was closer, and I think Cook might have done the hold-in to kind of kick things moving forward, and maybe not just with the team too, just to kind of, let's shake it up a little bit and see if we can get something turning forward. But I really think the bottom line was the sides were closer than we thought on the numbers, and it made it easier to come to this agreement on Wednesday for $48 million, especially because the Bills, to me, held the cards here.
Yeah.
They've got Josh Allen. You don't need a running back. Like you said, we had a debate about whether they could still make the Super Bowl without James Cook. You should never feel like you have to sign a running back.
Yeah.
So the idea that the Bills, after the hold-in, suddenly were like, oh, we're going to double our offer. There's no way that happened. Yeah. Right?
Well, also, James Cook, too, said, and he's not a man of many words, we've said this, but he also said, I was chilling throughout this whole thing. So that, makes me feel like you said, it had to have been, some sort of close where he felt confident that this was going to happen. It didn't seem like he ever felt like, I might not be a Buffalo Bill this year. It kind of made it seem like I was just kind of waiting for, things to settle down, and I knew we were going to get there eventually.
He did have the comment at one point about, I'm going to get paid whether it's here or somewhere else.
Yeah,
it was the wherever comment is what it was. So that led a little bit of doubt about what he was doing. Yeah. But I think, I think bottom line, this negotiation, at least the last few days of it, was easier than we thought. It probably wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But it was easier than we thought. And speaking of that, let's give Brandon Beane some credit here, because Before Cook, you had Christian Benford, you had Greg Rousseau, you had Terrell Bernard, you had Khalil Shakir, you had Josh Allen this year too, which is not a small thing, even if like negotiating with him is a whole different world than the rest of these guys. He has now created the Bills core 2.0.
Yeah.
Like this is a brand new group of guys. He released Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Trey White, although Trey White's back. It's a different Trey White.
Yeah.
Mitch Morse, Tremaine Edmonds, if you want to go there. The old core is gone. He's now flipped it over to a new core, which is impressive, A, just because he did it, but B, how many GMs last long enough to even attempt this, you know? So let's give Brandon Beane his flowers for his ability to create this new core.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool to think of that, you know, like we said, all of these guys are on four-year extensions is what they all signed. And so to me that it seems intentional that, you know, this is the group that they want to be the leaders of this team for the next 4 years. And, you know, you kind of have, you know, you have a receiver, you have your DB, you have your D lineman, you have like a different person from each position group, and it feels like maybe that's intentional. And we talk about, but Christian Benford said, you know, 4 more Super Bowls is what that
yes.
kind of
For people who don't know, we asked Christian Benford today, isn't it weird you guys all signed 4-year contracts? He's like, 4 more Super Bowls, which people love, of course.
The word more, maybe.
Well, they've been to 4, so you want to go back to the
I know
Kelly
everybody's
years.
saying, okay, well, does that mean we're going to win them? We're going to go to them, and I think, you know, I feel like that has to strengthen just the idea of what this team is. Just having those group of guys who have performed over the last few years and have, you know, bringing them back and guaranteeing that they are going to be here for the next several years. It's got to add some, not fuel to the fire, but just like a mindset of this is the group that's going to get it done. That's going to, you know, go to the Super Bowl and be the ones to go all the way.
Let's talk about that. Is this that group? Is this group good enough? Because I spent a lot of time thinking about that today. Yeah. This is the new core, right? Is this better or worse than the old core? And I think that the main place I land on is that, at least ceiling-wise, this group is probably not as good because Trey White and Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, and if you want to throw Stephon Diggs in there, which is not totally unfair, those guys are all pros, first or second team. Yeah. How many of these 5 guys do we think have all-pro potential? Now, look, Khalil Shakir, although he signed a big new deal, he didn't sign like number 1 wide receiver money. Yeah. And as Joe Brady says, they don't even know what a number 1 receiver is. Right, exactly. Separate discussion. But he's not a guy that's paid like someone who should be an all-pro.
Yeah.
Greg Rousseau, Christian Benford, James Cook, and maybe just a little bit less Terrell Bernard, all by their pay scale are more so than that. Yeah. Of those 4 guys, I really think Benford is the only one that has legit all-pro potential.
Yeah, it feels like this group it feels like they're, I don't want to say the word sleeper, that's not the word I'm looking for, but just like the group that you don't maybe expect them to be the all-pro guys, and I think, you know, like we said, probably the majority of them won't. Christian Benford might be the one that is the most favored in this. But I do think, not that the ceiling might be as high as, you know, that former group, but I do think they do have what that foundation of the group is in order to get there. I think they could be what that group was and what people look up to. And I think too, that other group is, those are all big names that people know. You know, those were players
because they were all pros.
Exactly. So I'm saying, you know, those were those big names that, and we're comparing this group now to those people who we all know, because like you said, they are all pros and they did, you know, do a lot for several teams in the league. But I think maybe they don't have as high of a ceiling, but I think they can get there. I don't think this is a group that we're saying, you know, Brandon Beane brought all these people back and we have this group, but, you know, we're not excited about them. They're not going to be the ones to do it. I still think that they have the potential to be that. And I think that just adding James Cook to the mix just, you know, even strengthens that core.
Brandon Beane talked about the fact that he still believes all these guys are improving. Now, look, GM guy is going to say that, you know, anytime he just gave big money to someone who's never been an all-pro. And I think there's something faulty about paying a guy to where this contract looks good for us only if he improves, especially when most of the guys are already above average to begin with. Just, you know, based on where they're at, it's going to be hard to get better. So I think you've got a great point, though, on the foundational level. The Bills with these 5 guys are going to win a lot of games, a lot, and they're going to get a lot of playoff chances. And whether they're an all-pro or not, if I said to you over the next 4 years that the Bills every single time are going to win the division and start out with a playoff home game, which is distinctly possible considering the trash that's in their division right now, Drake May not excluded. There is a good chance that these 5 guys will be the team that get them there based on sheer opportunities. Even if I would sit here and say the top end talent isn't as good. The one other caveat I'll say for Greg Rousseau is that Greg Rousseau gets better every single year. So I never want to put a ceiling on him because every time I say this is who he is, the next year he gets better. So we'll see with him. One more thing with this contract. And we'll do this quick so we can hit some other stuff before we get done here. The running back room going forward is now under contract in the next 2 years, and it's one of the deepest in the NFL. Ty Johnson, like we said, great on third downs. Ray Davis, a really good backup. It does put Ray Davis in a weird spot, though, because Ray Davis now almost has no chance to get a second contract because James Cook's going to be here for 3 years. Ray Davis is in his second year. He'd be up for an extension after next year with James Cook already getting paid. I don't know how you give Ray Davis that money. And Ray Davis and James Cook are practically the same age. So when we're looking at James Cook as a guy who, would go into a third contract, which running backs almost never get, what does James Cook or how does Ray Davis figure into that financially when you're the same age against the number one running back that's already gotten the money?
Yeah, I don't think he does. I don't think Ray Davis does financially fit into that. Unfortunately, I mean, as much as we like to see Ray Davis out there, maybe he will as a kicker. Who knows? No, I'm kidding. But
he's excited about that. He loves that stuff.
Maybe he'll find his new thing, and running back, we'll get rid of it. No, but I think like you said, it's financially, it's not going to be in Ray Davis's favor. I mean, and that's depending on what he does this year. And I don't know. I wanted to see Ray Davis. If James Cook isn't brought back, it would have been fun to see Ray Davis. And I was kind of looking forward to see, okay, what will Ray Davis do in this situation now that he is going to be the next guy up. But I mean, like you said, I don't think financially he does fit in the equation after these 2 years. So.
I tend to agree, and we'll see if there's any room for Ray Davis going forward. There probably won't be after this. I think bottom line with this deal, though, I think even if it feels like a thick deal, I think the Bills did good to not only land James Cook, but all the signings they made in the offseason. They've got their core. They're going forward. They also have no distractions now. There's no worry about the hold-in. And if it costs you a little extra money to do that, I mean, would you pay $1 million a year to get rid of a distraction? In a vacuum, I think that money's worth it. Obviously, you don't want to do that 10 times. Yeah. But I think overall, Brandon Beane, in this situation, maybe it was neutral, maybe even a little bit running back one, player one in this case. Yeah. But overall, the offseason Brandon Beane has been really good. All right, we got 2 minutes left here. Let's real quick kind of go through a couple stars of the last 2 practices. Number one, the Tuesday practice, Rachel, is all about Keon Coleman.
Keon Coleman, here's our daily Keon Coleman update. Keon Coleman.
We're past that. Go ahead.
We are past that. And it's okay. Honestly, it's probably a good thing we're having updates about him now. I mean, I guess positive updates as this one is. But Keon Coleman, we want to keep seeing him take the next step. I feel like yesterday, as we're getting closer to the season, Keon Coleman looked good yesterday. He had a few catches. I mean, I know you kind of saw more practice than I did in that regard, but just seeing from what I saw from Keon Coleman, it's the Keon Coleman that we want to see, and that's obviously a net positive in this. And so I'm glad he finally seems to be, as we're getting closer to the season, taking those steps.
Yeah, and to your point, the thing that stood out, he had 2 really physical catches, one against Dane Jackson on the sideline where Dane was all over him. Then he had an end zone catch against Jamarcus Ingram. And I know people complain those weren't the top DBs against him, whatever. They were both good plays. And Coleman in the red zone, they're working him so much there that you can see the thinking that if we can get him functional in that red zone, we'll be really good. The other guy that stood out today was Josh Palmer. And not necessarily for anything particular individual-wise, but he incrementally is becoming more and more involved in the offense. He's not spectacular, but he's so ridiculously competent. And for an offense that really has Khalil Shakir and a bunch of hope, to have someone else out there that's a professional, that gets open, that knows what he's doing, I think can be a really big deal. And I've been encouraged with what Palmer can bring to this offense.
For sure, yeah. I'm excited to see the Josh to Josh connection, as I said on here before. And I think Josh Allen, too, comes from a perspective of just being so intelligent as to what is going on with the field and seeing their connection and them communicate and, build that bond of, these Palmer's just coming into this offense. It's really cool to see, and I think I'm hoping that translates onto the field.
Both Palmers are pretty ridiculously smart, and putting them together, like you said, could be a game changer for the Bills offense. All right, that's it today. We'll be back on Sunday, wrapping up Bills and Bears. We'll see you then. For Rachel Labbert, I'm Thad Brown. You're watching Bills Campday Recap.